Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live webinar on apparel. I'm here with Walter and also JC. We'll introduce ourselves just momentarily. This is a live webinar around why your apparel software won't scale. We'll speak about the challenges around running different print technologies for apparel, such as direct to garment or DTG, direct to film or DTF, and embroidery, all in one single system, together also, of course, with sublimation. But before we kickstart, maybe we can start with some introductions. So I'll pass it over to you first, JC.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on here. My name is JC. I'm the owner of Imperial Custom Apparel, and we're located here in Miami, Florida. We've been in business for about 6 years now, and we focus specifically on DTG. So that's what we specialize in for POD, B2B, and our own marketplace stores, which is where we found Gelato in. So we sell on TikTok, Etsy, Amazon, and Shopify.
Thanks,
Super.
JC. Hey, everyone. My name is Walter Daly. I help decorators automate their operations on a unified end-to-end system. And I'm really excited to share with you the shifts that we're seeing in the market and how software is playing a crucial role in adjusting to these macro trends. Pass it back to you, Nico.
Super. Thank you, both JC and Walter. I'm Nico. I'm a senior VP of product here at Gelato. I've been here for, I think, over now 10 years. I work very closely with different product managers, looking at the experience end-to-end for GelatoConnect, starting with storefronts, going through procurement, workflow, and logistics. And this is both for our programmatic and apparel suite. So today we'll be speaking more about the apparel suite. During the next 30 minutes, you will learn around four key topics. So first is around how the world has changed, how the consumer or end consumer is demanding more decoration methods and more personalization in production on demand of apparel, and what that entails in order for a decorator like yourself having a sustainable, profitable business, right? Secondly, we'll speak about the softwares that decorators like JC in Imperial Custom Apparel and others are using, and how some of those tools are falling short to really cater the needs that the consumer wants, where you speak about multi-production facility, multi-methods, right? DTG, DTF, embroidery, sublimation, and of course, ingesting orders from so many different channels. So we'll speak a little bit about that. Then we'll come into GelatoConnect workflow for apparel and how this is one single system and one platform that touches everything from the order ingestion through storefronts, the procurement, which means your inventory, your warehousing management, and the replenishment of stock through the workflow automation across different machines and different production technologies, as well as lightweight shipping for logistics. And finally, very exciting, we have a lot of new cool stuff coming up during the next few months. So we'll speak more around where we're taking GelatoConnect workflow for apparel, for the roadmap, and what that means for your apparel operations. So with that, I'll pass it over for you, Walter, to kick it off.
Yeah. So the world has changed, and local production is no longer a story that's just about sustainability anymore. It's a story about your margins. And there are three macro trends that are converging right now that are impacting your growth and your profitability. So on the next slide, you'll see these trends. They are first and foremost the demand. So the global decorated apparel market is on track to reach anywhere between 57 million and 68 billion by 2030. And print on demand specifically within that segment is growing at 26% a year. At the same time, two-thirds of PSPs we speak with, they expect their operating costs to rise due to tariffs and energy prices. Meanwhile, 76% of retailers now sell through three or more channels. So what we're seeing here is the math on a single channel tool stops working when your customers are buying you from like 5, 6, 7 different places. So this combination of rising demand, rising costs, and tools that were built for a different era is exactly the environment where the gap between decorators that are running on connected systems versus disparate fragmented systems, that pain really starts to compound and makes it really difficult to grow and scale the business. On the next slide, you'll see that apparel is the fastest moving category. It's high personalization, there's low minimums, short lead times. These are now the default expectation from our buyers. And it doesn't matter which decorating method we're looking at. That could be DTG, DTF, embroidery, sublimation. They're all growing in parallel right now. And what we hear in conversations every day with decorators, that's, they say they want to grow, but they're finding it really difficult to say yes to new channels and new product categories because ultimately what we're seeing is a software problem. And it's one that doesn't get better by just bolting on another tool or adding another machine to your shop floor. So, what are decorators running on today? On the next slide, teeing this conversation up, the tools that they're running on right now, whether it's a workflow app, a fulfillment engine, or maybe a system that you built yourself, they were almost certainly not designed for these market demands that decorators are seeing in 2026. So on the next slide, this is the picture we see that most decorators have going on in their shops today. There's 4 or 5 tools. Most do not communicate to each other. And in the middle, that cohesive glue is one person holding it all together. That could be email, Post-its, Excel documents, and a lot of tribal knowledge that's in their head. But what happens if they get sick or they quit? The system starts to break down really quickly. So in these conversations we're having with decorators, 4 main challenges emerge. Setting up storefronts and managing them is really difficult and time consuming. Inventory chaos, manually tracking blanks, super difficult. Fulfillment breakdowns due to the multi-channel coordination strains, and then manually shopping carriers to get the best shipping rates. These are all converging to be really difficult to manage and ultimately scale your business. And each one of these is a software problem dressed up as an operational one. So we see that most operations fall into about 4 categories. On the next slide, you'll see the first one is the single method workflow tool. So this could be built for DTG or DTF, and it does that one thing really well or reasonably well. But the moment you add a second decoration method, you're either duct taping 2 systems together or managing the second one offline, and ultimately they don't communicate. The second that we often see is the POD only fulfillment engine. This is great for B2C t-shirt drops at volume, but they were not designed to handle corporate embroidery accounts, multi-method bundled orders, or procurement. And the third is a generic print MIS. So these are typically built for commercial print or packaging. They're often the most powerful in terms of the raw features, but they're not designed for your business. They're not focused on apparel, and they don't speak the language of blank garments, decoration methods, or really on-demand printing at all. And the fourth and final, and probably what we hear the most in our segment, is the homegrown system, spreadsheets, a tool someone built, a lot of tribal knowledge that's held together by 1 or 2 people, and it works really until it doesn't. So, JC, I want to bring you into the fold here. I know you've actually lived this. So could you help us understand, before GelatoConnect, what was your stack actually made of, and, what were the tools that you were using?
Yeah, no, great, Walter. All these things you mentioned hit too close to home for me. A lot of these things we went through for years. Coming into the industry, we come because we want to create nice merch. We love to print. And we found ourselves basically being part-time software engineers and eventually full-time. And at first, I'm taking recommendations from everybody at the shows, following the industry standards, going with a lot of systems that I'm sure many of you on here have used before, which are, there's a handful only, not to mention names, but we went through every single one of them looking for an all-in-one solution. And we kept running into consistent walls. All of them fell short in multiple areas. And we kept getting all these, hey, it'll be done in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. So our business became dependent on their timeline. And as you know, that's the worst feeling, especially investing all this money on equipment, all this money in infrastructure, inventory, and we're waiting for different engineers that we were using from Pakistan, India, locally, or we were handling 4 different platforms at a time. So what we used to do was we used to intake orders from ShipStation. At that time, I think we were paying $499 a month for their highest tier, which is more expensive now. Then from there, we were using Orderdesk because we didn't have direct connections to marketplaces. So we were intaking orders from Orderdesk with a bandage set up on Zapier, right? And then we were using Printavo also for our B2B. So we had about, at the time, 4 to 5 systems. And I think some people have more because I've spoken to a lot of PSPs. And it was something that it was overwhelming because we had which I would call it a Keyman risk, right? If that person left, that nobody would know how to use that system. We had one person trained on Printavo, one person trained on ShipStation, one person trained on each of these systems. And my biggest fear was when that person didn't show up, I had to step in, I had to manage all those processes. And there's only so much that you can give off to an employee because it's just so overwhelming, the amount of things they have to know to deal with these different systems, that you kind of have to be there all the time. And I always have to be physically there showing everybody how to do these things. So from there, once we saw that all these stacks weren't really working out, we started just trying to build our own system. And we were dealing with people in Pakistan and India, and we ran into a lot of hurdles there with the time difference. We even tried to hire 2 engineers locally because we're like, hey, we need to control exactly what's going on. So we tried to minimize those stacks, which we did minimize a few of them, but just alone in the connections, we couldn't make it to get one connection from these marketplaces, which I'm sure that you mentioned on. So Amazon, Etsy, TikTok. We were waiting about 6 to 8 months to hear back from Etsy because we kept getting declined for little things. And that alone was tremendous value when I was able to share that with my customers who we onboard for print on demand and our own marketplace stores. So that's kind of to answer your question. The stack was multiple things.
Yeah. No, and it's not uncommon. I mean, we hear typically 5 to 7 different tools being cobbled together. They don't speak to each other. And like you said, it sounds like it starts to break down once maybe someone's out for the day, someone leaves. Those single point of failures are really risky to the business and your operation running smoothly on a day-to-day basis. So I guess, did you have one light bulb moment that was like you knew the setup wasn't going to get you to where the business was going and some of these macro challenges that we were talking about, impacting your ability to grow and scale?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I've had more than one over the years, and it's quite frustrating because you invest all this money in equipment, as you guys know, and everybody on here, DTG, DTF, sublimation, whatever equipment, they get really expensive. So you have the equipment, you have the structure, you have the employees, you have everything in place. You have a customer that comes up to you and say, "Hey, I do 10,000 orders a month," which this has happened to me before. Music band, a special customer, anybody that wants to work with you because they see you run a tight shop. How can you connect my backend to your store, take in my orders, update me on how much I pay for shipping? How can I upload my own designs? I want control of everything, and I want to be able to see how you guys are fulfilling the orders. And then there, I'm with my hands up. What do I do now? So I kind of realized quick that if I don't have a system that supports all these areas, I'm not going to scale. And it doesn't matter what kind of $1 million equipment we have, we were always going to fall short. So basically, Joe down the street, who had a good system, was going to beat us, no matter the printer they had. And that's where me and my partner, we realized, hey, look, we really have to stop investing in equipment right now. We really have to focus on finding something that could be an all-in-one solution for our customers, for our own selves and them. And back to your point, another aha moment for me was we used to go really viral in TikTok Shop. For those of you, TikTok Shop is a great channel, and I strongly recommend it to anybody with live selling. I remember when we had this sweater that said immediately no, we embroidered it. And we sold 1,500 in one day due to an influencer, 1,500 embroidered different threads. And we printed 1,500 papers and stapled them with the order confirmation and the shipping label. And then we had to color code each thread on each sweatshirt in order to make sure that we embroidered the correct thread color. And we didn't finish that day. I think we did about 600 pieces. The whole order took us almost 5 days, and we had to shut down the store in vacation mode before they gave us problems for the SLA. But long story short, that was one of the moments where I'm like, hey, we know how to sell, we have the machinery, but we don't have the software. And I feel like a lot of people run into that, and all we're doing is trying to find the best option to take recommendations, but there's really nothing all in one out there that you can piece together without using 3 or 4 systems.
Yeah, absolutely. And just chipping in here, like, we'll speak a little bit around how that has changed through GelatoConnect and how it has enabled you to, remove some of the restriction that you speak about. But I think it's crazy example that you shared with this embroidery and the tickets. And, I've been to some of these, decorator fairs where they're selling, not lying, millions of dollars pieces of equipment. And then I hear from the machine vendors, they ask the decorators how they expect to run the jobs on the machines, and they say manually. And it's crazy that they spend, millions of dollars on this piece of equipment, but they are not thinking about efficiencies through software, right? And this is why this is all about. But I mean, for purposes of everybody in this webinar to get to know, what you are up to in IC apparel more in Imperial Custom, tell us just very briefly in just maybe 30, 40 seconds, like what do you specialize with? What are your type of customers? Where are you based? And so we give a bit of context to the audience.
Yeah, great. So originally we started smack before COVID, and we focused on our own marketplaces. We actually started like everybody else, small shop, actually corner of my apartment, and we started selling on Etsy and Shopify. Those were the only two platforms that we understood at that time. And from there, we always focused on marketplaces because we found ourselves competing with everybody in B2B. And I was only one person, so I couldn't be on the phone for 30 minutes per customer for 3 shirts for their crews. So I decided to only focus on the marketplaces. From there, we steadily started growing our marketplaces, but it was overwhelming with everything manually being done. So we quickly reached the limit and we had to increase our price in order to make up for that limit. And then we just ended up losing a lot of customers. Then from there, once we started getting into these systems, building this software and also working with Gelato, then we started getting into POD because we were noticing that there was a huge gap for people who can't afford this kind of equipment that Nico said, right? Nobody wants to put this equipment in their garage. Nobody wants to put this equipment, rent a warehouse, get employees. So we quickly found a niche, especially in the Miami market, where there's a lot of brand owners, a lot of people that want to do stuff. And we started focusing on POD. So people come to our store, they see the samples, we onboard them, we create them an account in store, an in-store link, and the customers are able to handle everything self-service from start to finish. So they're able to use the mockup AI generator to generate their mockups. They're able to do tags, SEOs, without me having to hold their hand. And even better, we have a few videos ready for them so they can just onboard themselves. So our main focus right now is POD and our marketplace stores. And now, which I know this is not the webinar for it, but now with the AI estimator, we're focusing back on B2B because we no longer have to be talking to people on the phone for 30 minutes.
Yeah, we'll speak also maybe if we have some time about the GelatoConnect estimator, but that's exciting, super great story. And again, thanks for being part of this webinar, JC.
Yeah.
Back to you then, Walter.
Yeah, JC, I love that use of automation of like onboarding customers with the videos. That's really creative. I would imagine that is helping lower your cost and time. So I want to move to the next slide to talk about maybe some of those other main cost drivers you're seeing on your shop floor today. Typically, we see about 20 to 25% of revenues tied up in shipping and procurement, upwards of 30% of blanks just sit in a warehouse shelf taking up space. And many decorators, they resort to hiring more staff when they've add new channels or they, taking on a new big customer. So just wanted to hear from you, JC, a little bit about back in your old setup, when you tried to add a new sales channel, what did that actually take? How long was it? How many people had to touch it? And I guess how many things had to go right for it to be successful?
Yeah. I mean, so it was a lot, man. And, it was the only way because that's all we knew how to do. We had 16 people listing products, right? Virtual assistants, because we couldn't afford, US salaries at the moment. So we had 16 people listing in the Philippines, which I found them on a website. Great people, but it was a lot to manage. 200 to 250 a week. Everybody was getting paid. I had the highest subscription of Adobe Illustrator and Canva accounts because every single person had to have a Canva account and an Adobe Illustrator. I had about 40 different Google Drives with different mockups that I used to have to purchase, take pictures of, and put them on there with my watermark to make sure that nobody steals our hard-earned work, because people just copy and paste them. So a typical day would look me opening up Slack and, chatting with the team, just like on a call right here, 8-10 people at a time. You're in charge of listing 100 listings for the store. You're in charge of listing 50. You're in charge of checking that person had the centered mockup in the middle on Canva. You're in charge of making sure that the artwork is cut perfectly and transparent. So I had all these different roles, which was at a point, I was overwhelmed. I couldn't keep on going like this, right? There was even instances where they list 200 listings and it was just slightly tilted to the left and every single listing had to be deleted. So, we had 17 people that were listing for us in total at our prime time for our own stores and other stores, because that was the only way that we could take on business from the outside using Order Desk as well and ShipStation. So as soon as I signed on to StoreLink, that cut down to 2 right away, instantly, because we were able to leverage this tool in order to go ahead and list 100 to 150 products with one person, because everything was automated from the beginning to the end. And I'm sure you'll touch more on that, but that was one of the biggest aha moments for us. Once I saw this, I was like, hey, 17 people that well, 15 because I stay with 2. We no longer have to deal with them. We no longer have to follow up on them. We no longer have to have Canva, Adobe Illustrator, and all those. So that was something that automatically hit us super hard right away. The next thing that helped us a lot was the logistics side of it, right? Organizing our warehouse, because we would run into a point where we would try to estimate how much inventory we needed for the busy days. But no matter what, we ended up with 40, 20, 30 boxes of leftover inventory that we then had to sell at really low cost, or even end up giving it away. I remember I donated hundreds of items to Goodwill because we never used them again, sizes that we were never going to sell. So we ran into that problem really quickly. And now with the way that you guys have everything set up on the logistics and procurement side, the ordering is automated through SNS, Sanmar, and all the other things that you guys have, which are great, the advances you guys are making. And then they have the AI feature that helps you anticipate ordering as well. And then back to your question, the cost that showed up on the floor was also shipping. Shipping, you can't forget shipping, man. We suffered with shipping. I had USPS reps come to my location, try to open me an account, and it was hard to get discounted shipping rates. And automatically we benefited from the shipping rates that you guys leveraged for us, and that was huge for us. Those were huge savings. So technically, in a way, I was telling my partner, I'm like, hey, we're getting our money back here. You guys, Gelato ships all these packages per month. You're giving us these leverage, these great shipping rates, and we were just saving money left and right.
No, I'm glad. So glad to go ahead. Sorry, Nico.
Let me just chip in here. This is actually quite significant, right? So that people in the audience can grasp on the value here. So first is like you've reduced massively the amount of people that you have been, outsourced to manage manually designs. And that now it's handled through automation around StoreLink, which is the storefront solutions that GelatoConnect offers, which we'll speak about. You also mentioned around having visibility around what you have in stock and what you don't have in stock. So you get rid of all this overstock that ultimately you end up giving for goodwill. So it's basically, cash getting thrown out the window. And then finally, you get access to super competitive global rates for shipping. More or less, how much do you feel you've saved on shipping costs per label after you've deployed GelatoConnect Logistics, JC?
Oh man, I mean, I've saved. First of all, on the employee side, that's my biggest saving, right? So we're saving thousands a month. So I wake up happy about that every day. Now the shipping, on our busy months, we could be looking at 10 to 15,000 a month in shipping savings, depending on how much volume we ship out. A design can go viral and we could sell 5,000 items in one day like we have before. And that's just in one marketplace. So I think it's hard for people to grasp that, right? Because coming into this business, you want to do what everybody does, right? B2B, everybody's fighting for the local hospital, for the local pizza shop. And I think that when you open up your mind and you look at that, this is not the only way, right? And that somebody has taken the time to build a tool and give you this leverage, it's extremely powerful. Now you're not just competing with everybody because I'm in a unique niche of my own. I really don't concern myself with, hey, is he closing down the street? Is he doing? As a matter of fact, if you look at my location on Google, you'll see everything's blacked out because we don't open the door to anybody because everything's online. And that's the power that StoreLink has given me, right? I'm not competing with everybody. I'm having my own marketplace stores, and I can also leverage this tool to all the POD customers as well. So it's a double whammy for me. And I think it's really huge to see that you're not only going to save on shipping, you're going to save on the procurement side with the deals that you guys just did with those companies as well, Sanmar, All Day Shirts, and you're also going to have this leverage with StoreLink to not have to build these things out yourself. And I think the more we can get into that now in 2026, the way the creator economy is going, I think that whoever gets on this ship right now is really going to be leaps ahead of everybody.
Yeah. So what do you say, Walter? Should we go on into what that actually solution looks like? So you speak about the benefits of StoreLink, procurement, workflow, logistics, but what does this end-to-end solution of GelatoConnect workflow for apparel really means, right? So it is, one platform across 4 different pillars, as we call it, right? First is the ingestion of orders. You call it StoreLink, which is our solution for storefronts. We'll speak a little bit about that, but that's the black box on the left, right? Getting orders from customers, whether your customers have dedicated stores or marketplaces in Shopify, Etsy, TikTok, Amazon, or you might be serving some B2B customers with dedicated storefronts for them. All of that is covered, on the storefront side via the StoreLink e-commerce and the StoreLink web to print solution. Then you have procurement as a different module here. This is everything that has to do with setting up your preferred suppliers per SKU. You mentioned some of them, Sanmar, SNS in the US. You might want to get stock for certain SKUs from one supplier versus another based upon the preferred rates that you might have. Then how do you link those SKUs to handle your inventory? So you understand what you have in stock, out of stock. You set up your limits in the inventory to do the replenishment of stock. So you can handle both just-in-time and on-site SKUs, and using the warehousing management tool so you know precisely the location of the stock, which is important because that fits into the workflow, which is the production, right? So once the SKUs arrive from the supplier or you have them from inventory, how do you route them to the right print technology for the right machine with the right profile? And the expectation with the customer these days is that you might be printing, for example, direct to garment of the front, but then your customer may expect to have a direct to film, heat pressed on the inner label. And how do you manage that production workflow across two different print technologies in a way that is efficient, right? And it's automated, because the last thing you want is to add more people that you don't need if software can automate that for you. And finally, logistics, which is important, particularly when you're shipping lightweight parcels around big countries like the US or globally. How do you get access to 100 plus global carriers? And how do you get that 30 to 40% lower shipping costs, right? So this is how the end-to-end would look like. Now, moving into how that means, for example, being machine agnostic, which is a beautiful thing about GelatoConnect. We don't really care whether you're using brand A or brand B for your print technology. We're building for the ecosystem of apparel and decorators overall, right? So in GelatoConnect, to get started, you can buy a new, very expensive Kornit Atlas Plus machine, which, we can speak about that, JC, pun unintended, but you can buy a very expensive piece of equipment. You can get up and ready that piece of equipment with GelatoConnect basically with a few clicks. We've built this software over many years in the past. So we have a lot of direct integrations with most of the machine manufacturers and the top brands of machines across Brother, Kornit, Eon, Epson for DTG, and also direct integration with Embroidery, with straight digitalization according to the specifications that you need, whether it's a color palette on the stitching machine or the preferred digitalization file. Are these some of the machines that you currently have, JC, or?
Yeah, man. I'm a proud Kornit Atlas Max Plus advocate. I've had Brother, I've had Epson, I've had M&R, and I I kind of pride myself in. You can go to Instagram and check us out at Imperial Custom Apparel. We have all those machines there. One of the pain points that you bought back, Nico, was right away, and I'm not going to mention names, right? But we all know there's not a lot. I never understood why every time I bought a new machine, my software company decided to charge me 30 to 40,000 to connect each machine.
Mm-hmm.
For the workflow. And they never had a good explanation for it, right? Nothing but a money grab. So I couldn't understand why when I bought a heat press, you needed to charge me 2,500. Why when I bought the folding line, you needed to charge me 25,000. When I bought a larger DTG platform, it was 40,000. And as soon as I heard when you guys don't charge for these workflows, I was like, oh, this is a company that really wants to help, right? How long does it take to do a workflow like this? And you guys give us the tools to leverage it and use this ourselves. So for all of you who have a lot of equipment and are worried about that transition, because that was one of my biggest concerns, right? M&R, DTF, Tajima, all these equipment, they charge their separate fees for those integrations. Gelato helps you out to automate these workflows and build it specifically to your needs, whether that's pre-treat, whether adding another step, whether heat press. And that's the flexibility that you want, especially in a market that's always changing. You don't know if next year 3D printing explodes and we need 3D printing integrations. Gelato will be there. And Nico's actually told me this. This software is not only for printing. People use it to put together bike parts, a bunch of stuff. There's so many things that you could do with this software when you really dive in.
Yeah, that's a great point. The software is built for scalability, right? It's of course adapted to help your operations for apparel, but it can certainly be used. And the system in the backbone is being used today for big PSPs, which is print service providers, doing massive runs of book publishing, right? Or wide format for art decor and so forth, right? So it is very, very bulletproof. That's what I meant. But on the machines, before moving next, we work, and I personally work very close with most of these machine brands. With Kornit, we have a very strong relationship. Now that you mentioned your Kornit Atlas Plus Max that you purchased, we generate the KSF files, which is the XML instructions to the coordinate machines with the specificity around the amount of spray for pre-treat, the amount of white that needs to go, the repositioning of the PNG. So when I speak about machine agnostic, I also want to ensure that the main takeaway is that we do, direct integrations with the specifications that these machines have, because we've been building this software through the years. And this is why, it takes a few clicks to get onboarded, because as you onboard a new machine into the platform, it becomes available for everybody in GelatoConnect, right? And that's a beautiful thing about, being part of a platform and not a specific, isolated software solution. So, what decorators in GelatoConnect Apparel are seeing. So, Walter spoke a little bit around some of these outcomes, but what we're seeing from decorators deploying the entire suite of GelatoConnect workflow for apparel, which includes everything from the ingestion of the orders through the procurement workflow and solution, such as JC at Imperial Custom. We have world-class, and we see world-class dispatch on time performance, at least 98%. I've seen some decorators come into GelatoConnect with, average dispatch on times below 70%, which are, if you put yourself on the customer, is really, really poor. Some of them have come even without understanding what the dispatch on time is, assuming that they hit the SLAs unless the order gets canceled, which is very disappointing. So deploying GelatoConnect not only necessarily help you deliver on that 98, it helps you understand why you're not delivering, so that it brings you up to the benchmark. The same with production errors, below world-class errors of 0.35%. This is important because as the order comes in, the workflow executes to ensure that the correct print profile gets applied depending upon the SKU that is arriving from a specific supplier and is routed to the right machine that has the right color palette, right, with the correct SLA. So at the time that blank reaches the quality control station, it's almost certain that production errors will be massively reduced. The last thing you want to do is ship the wrong order or an order with a production error to the customer, because it's not only necessarily the reprint that you have to make, but it's also the erosion of the customer trust when you ship these mistakes to customers, right? We spoke about savings. So on the logistics side, up to 40% lower shipping costs due to the negotiated power that we have in Gelato, because as you become part of GelatoConnect, we of course have a aggregated bargaining power with suppliers to drive shipping rates low, which is essential when you're shipping light well parcels like apparel. And then just in the example that you gave us, JC, the same goes with procurement, right? So it is not only around never running out of stock, so having stock for what you need to deliver for your customers, but also ensuring that you don't overstock. And a lot of our customers come without first having an understanding around the level of stock. You spoke about some of that, right? Throwing, some garments away because you overstock initially. And usually I've seen some of the decorators, when they deploy the entire GelatoConnect procurement, basically reducing their warehousing size and the amount of SKUs held by 40 to 50%, right? Which is significant, because then that is cash flow that you as an owner can deploy for other, areas of your business, such as winning new customers. So moving on here, Nico, yeah, go ahead.
One thing that I wanted to share, and because obviously there's different levels of machinery, so I want to make this very, very easy. This system's accessible for anybody, whether you have one brother in the corner of your house, whether you have one DTF machine, whether you have two Melcos. The point is to scale the right way and start off from the beginning in a strong winning position, right? Because you'll be positioned ahead of everybody no matter what machinery you have. So let's say that you don't have the capabilities that we have down here, which we're not the biggest, but we have different people that have more machines than us. Gelato gives you the option to send orders out in the network like that to people like me, or I can send orders to people like you as well. So you can leverage our equipment within that. Maybe one of you can touch on that a little bit. So, a lot of people know that, hey, even if you don't have this is not just tailored for the cornies,
Yeah, absolutely. On this specific point, JC, we've had some customers, in this case, some decorators that come to us, and because they have specific customers that, have an array of products. It might be some apparel products for decoration, but they might also sell, pick and pack. They might sell wall art, as an example, right? And they don't want to lose the customer, meaning they want to get all the orders in. So the way that they use GelatoConnect is that they can receive all the orders from the customer, But if this customer sends, canvases as an example, and they don't have a canvas stretcher machine, they will, outsource the canvas to another GelatoConnect partner inside GelatoConnect, right? This means that you maintain the customer relationship, you continue to grow the customer until perhaps it is warranted for you to make an investment into that specific machine. And we see that across, not only decorators, but also on the digital side. As I mentioned before, GelatoConnect is used not only by apparel decorators, but we have also customers doing digital production, whether it's for book publishing, wide format, paper substrates, and so forth, right? But
Yeah, that's huge.
good to highlight that, GC. Now, speaking about the outcomes that this drives, of course, we can speak about many different use cases. I try to pick some of our customers that are, in different parts of the world, but also they produce and they benefit in different ways. But before going into some of the details, since we have you here, JC, and Imperial Custom is one of them featured here. So, and we spoke about some of the benefits before. Maybe we can start there, and maybe if you can share with us if there's one thing that GelatoConnect has done for your business that you did not expect when you first signed up. What would that be?
Oh, automate my listing process. I thought there was no way around it. I thought that there was no way for me to shrink from 17 employees to 3 or even 2 at this point. I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel. I thought this was my life with LastPass, allowing people to have all my passwords, making sure they didn't delete my important designs, make sure my Google Drive was uploaded. I thought this is it, and it was extremely frustrating for a long time. But what Gelato really did for me was not only give me that power, it allowed me to now not only depend off my stores, it allowed me to bring people on from POD and put them into our machinery so we can fulfill orders on demand, which was huge for us. So when I look at, and maybe this will help for people, right? Because when I look at Gelato in 3 branches for myself. And I always explain this to everybody. I look at POD with StoreLink, right? I can onboard customers. I can allow them to come into there, have their own branded account. By the way, everything's branded to you. It'll say your Imperial Custom Apparel at the top. Then from there, I could drive traffic through there, right? Next, I look at my own stores as a whole separate channel. So Etsy, TikTok, Amazon, Shopify, you guys can do whatever you want on there and sell whatever you want. Now the new B2C storefronts allows something that wasn't able to be done in the past, which is what I use Deco Network for and Printavo to create customer stores. I no longer need that. So if I have a graduation school next to me and they want 5,000 kids' faces for their graduation, I can do that, create the B2C store, and I'm sure they'll touch more on that. And then I go to the B2B side, which is the third side, which is with the AI estimator. So that's the way I look at Gelato. And then the cherry on top is the shipping and the procurement, which is in a way just injecting money back into your pocket. So when you really take advantage of the system and all these different avenues, I was able at least to open up a bunch of different new cash flow options for the business. And also I was able to reduce staff significantly. So that's where it really made an impact for us. And we continue to see savings now, especially with the procurement side.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear, JC. And let me just probe you on this, because when I meet a lot of decorators, sometimes they come and the typical thing they say is like, well, we're slightly different. We're too small, or we do too custom jobs, or we are too complex. We have so many different machines. Like, this is maybe not for us. Like, what would you tell to somebody that starts to think in that way?
I would tell you, look, we all get hung up in the weeds of what we do, right? We all think we're the only ones going through things. I used to think for the longest that I'm the only one going through these problems. As I keep going to these shows, as I keep talking to people, we're not the only ones. We're all going through the same thing. And I think it's coming back to seeing how we view the business, right? The business is moving fast. Machineries are moving quick. But what is the point of having all this machinery if you can't streamline everything and the business works without you in that area, right? None of us wanted to be software engineers. For those of you on the fence, I would ask you to be open-minded, have vision towards the future, because the way things are changing rapidly, the market's changing. And those who adapt are going to capture that wave of volume. And those who don't are going to end up fighting for pennies with everybody else in their contract pricing. So I think starting these conversations, and just by you guys being on here, is a huge mentality shift of what's possible. Ask questions. I ask a lot of questions. They know. As a matter of fact, they do host all these in-person trips as well, where you can visit them, see everything. I wanted to see everything in person because I was so skeptical coming through all these systems that I was really on the defensive. Anybody talk to me about software, I don't want to talk to anybody. So if you're on the fence, think about how you're able to capitalize on those three things that I said: B2B, POD, stores. And if you don't know, that's where Gelato is here to help, right? One thing that I love about Gelato, and I'm a person that I don't like being on the phone, I don't like being in calls. I love that they have the help section on there that step by step teaches you, and I use Scoop a lot. Scoop is my favorite. That teaches you how to use everything. It's like an AI that any question you have, they'll help you on the platform. It's a full-time person helping you onboard, but also you have your own onboarding person. So the support is great for those of you that like talking to people. You have weekly calls. And one thing that I found out, right, if you have an idea that's complex, right, like I had an idea that I've been working with Nico on. If it's something that adds value, they'll add it for you. And if it's something that they don't do now, they'll do it next week. So don't let one little decision, like I remember in January when we went to ISS, B2C storefronts was everybody's question. Here it is. Here it is. 4 months later? You know, so imagine that. They just shifted their whole platform. They're moving at a rapid pace. And you want to be at the forefront of that. And they're doing the heavy lifting for us. And all we have to do is focus on selling. So guys, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. It's an investment, but you get your money back right away with all these different avenues that we talked about.
Yeah, well, you know, thank you for saying that, JC. And just for everybody's record, maybe tell us, JC, are you getting paid by us to be part of this webinar?
No, man. And you know what? I do this from the bottom of my heart. And if you ever see me at a show, I can get on a call, whatever you guys want, because we went through a lot of pains. You know, imagine spending 1.8 million on equipment, 2 million on equipment, and they don't even recommend a software for you. Yeah, right? Yeah, nobody has a solution. Hey, what does that guy do? He builds his own. What does that guy do? He builds his own. What do you mean he builds his own? So it's like something like that is very frustrating. And every person that I can save from this pain point, and they can move faster, because at the end of the day, speed wins. The first ones to catch on to this, you're going to be light years ahead from everybody coming on next year. So, and I'm here if you guys also can chat with me if you need anything or have any questions.
Thanks for offering that to the audience. And yeah, I mean, you know, in the 10 years that I've been here, you know, I think I visited on the apparel space maybe about 200, 250 plus decorators globally. And, you know, the saddest thing is that I've seen some decorators going out of business. They're reluctant to change. They've been, you know, running the business in the same way they've been running the business for the last 30, 40 years. And, you know, as Walter spoke about, the world around us, particularly for the consumer side, is changing so rapidly, right? And those that are actually excelling are those that embrace software as the, you know, transition to that change. And we have some of them here in addition to you, right? We have Tidymerch is one of our decorators in Stockholm. He's being able to quadruple the revenue by, you know, without adding one more person in the team. T-shirt gang in Canada, they've experienced, you know, significant savings on logistics, right? Gus is a great guy in Toronto. We also have Wemos in North America. They basically went from no POD orders to 20,000 in a month, just because they were able to deploy GelatoConnect, right? So what would that mean for your business if you're here in this webinar, right? Thinking about why, you know, what Gelato can unlock. Right,
yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. Conscious a little bit about the time, we have one last, you know, part of the webinar, which is also around, you know, we spoke about what that single platform is today. We spoke about how it links from storefronts to procurement, workflow solution, and logistics. We spoke about the outcomes that it drives with some examples, not only from, you know, you, JC, and ICA, but also other customers of GelatoConnect globally. Now, we do move fast, and that's something that I love around, you know, working with Gelato over the years. So there's a lot of very exciting things coming up for apparel in the coming months. I would say for the rest of Q2, and as we start to look into Q3. So first is we want to make our procurement module broader. We're bringing out, you know, many direct integrations with suppliers globally. This is to enhance availability of just-in-time SKUs for your decoration operations. And we're also now, you know, testing with some of the global suppliers a new just-in-time workflow that requires zero touch. This means that if you are relying on a supplier for, you know, just-in-time SKUs, you can place them through GelatoConnect Procurement. And when you unbox, you know, that order coming through from your supplier, all the blanks will already have a job ticket from GelatoConnect workflow. So you can basically open up the box and send the blanks straight to production. You can forget about sorting and understanding SLAs. It's like, and all of that is already integrated with the barcoding system we use. So it goes straight into the print profiles for the machines. So very exciting progress there. I know a lot of you spend a lot of time sorting and managing the inbound on opening boxes. So all of that will be massively simplified. We're also going deeper on technology. So we're looking at expanding beyond direct to garment, direct to film, embroidery, and sublimation. We're looking at all over print, which I know some of you are doing. We're also looking at direct to fabric. So we went with recently to an event, Walter and I, where we start to see some very exciting machinery going to direct to fabric. So we're looking into that. And we have some prospects that are coming in, helping us also start to shape how direct to fabric will look like. And on the embroidery side, we're also looking at direct API integrations with some of the machines. So you can save money around redigitalizing files, but using the API instructions for the machine to adapt the file. For example, if you want to use the same design, but instead of embroider on a cap, you want to embroider on a towel or on a hoodie, or if you want to resize it and make the size bigger, you can forget about redigitalization fees. So very exciting developments on the technology side. More on AI and automation. So we're bringing, AI up to quality checks. We have been building our A quality checks for quite some time. We're now deploying it to some of our GelatoConnect customers. This is across all decoration methods and significantly reduce the detection of or the shipment of production errors up to the packaging station. AI quality checks are able to, for example, understand the label of the manufacturer to flag whether there was a mispick, has access to everything around the order, the print profiles, to ensure whether the repositioning or the resizing of the artwork is correct. So we use agentic AI networks to detect and prevent issues flowing from the quality control station into the packaging station. And then we're also looking at automating more DTG print profiles, right? We have now a network of many, many machines with many types of machines and print profiles being created every day into the platform. So we're also doing some work to standardize the print profile. So when you get ready with your new machines, or you're new to GelatoConnect and you want to onboard your machines, you get direct access to ready to use bulletproof print profiles for DTG. And finally, we're going more global, particularly when it comes to logistics. So access to many, many more global carriers at very, very attractive rates. So more savings on logistics and more production nodes. So you spoke about, JC, being access and having access to production capabilities from other customers. So you can outsource some of the jobs. So you can always say yes to your customers. So with that said, I think I already said this quote, but I'll repeat it. It says that, the decorators who consolidate now compound the advantage. Those that still will work with fragmented, this spaghetti sort of software that Walter speak about, will spend the next 2 years basically, looking at pennies, right? And fighting for the pennies on the dollar, which is basically not the incentive that we want to drive with GelatoConnect.
So I think a lot of people are scared of the transition.
Yeah.
And for me, it was the biggest fear, switching from system to system, the amount of time you invested mapping SKUs, the amount of time you invested mapping artwork. And I want you to know that just get on a call and see how fast they can get all your stuff over. I think Ethan helped me out with I think it was 10,000 SKUs, something like that. It was some crazy stuff. And the advances that Gelato's made in onboarding from your system to theirs is completely different than mine 7 months ago. So I strongly recommend to check that out.
And just before wrapping up here, how much have you seen GelatoConnect changing, from last year that we started until and it was late last year until this year?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's been insane. I flew out to Madrid to meet you guys. I met the team, met everybody in person. The changes have been leaps ahead, from every angle, just how diverse your team is. I've been on calls with some of the best engineers I think I've ever spoken to from the Gelato team. And if they don't have it ready this week, it'll be ready next week. And if not, they'll give you a timeline when it's going to be ready. And they're consistently pushing it to the limit to find things that help us. So that's the best thing, right? You have somebody doing that thinking for you. Where's the market going? Where are the changes that these people can capitalize from? And that's what I love. I get mine, just like what you told me about the recipes. That's my biggest problem right now as we're onboarding all 3 machines. I've been thinking about recipes since last week. Imagine if you're able to give me, these 10 users use these top 20 recipes. You save me 2 weeks of work. dialing it in. So these are things that they know because other people are going through and they listen to your feedback. And that's more valuable than anything.
Oh, great. Great to hear. And, also delighted to have you as a customer, JC.
Yes.
All right, Walter,
Yeah,
to wrap up.
Yeah, I was just echoing JC here. I'd like to invite everyone to see GelatoConnect for yourself. Please consider booking a 30-minute demo with our team. You can also download our report on zero dead stock. Ultimately, we just love to help you deliver growth, efficiency, and control for your business in one unified end-to-end operating system. So with that, thank you so much for spending some time with us today, joining the webinar. Thank you, JC, for being here, and I wish everyone a wonderful day.
Yeah. Thank you, JC, and thank you,
Yeah, guys.
Walter. Thank you,
See you
everyone, for
guys.
attending. Bye.
Bye.